Good morning, y'all. I'm sitting here and I'm watching this Dr. Phil episode, and this is Black family on there. And one of the sisters comes out, and Dr. Phil is like, "Aren't you happy to meet your half brothers and half sisters?" And I'm like, "Whoa, Dr. Phil. Black people don't have half brothers and sisters. If y'all share the same mother, your brother and sister, that's your brother. Now, if your daddy went and had some kids, then that's your sister or your brother on your daddy's side of the family. This is not hard to understand." Somebody need to write in to Dr. Phil. I know it's some black people on the crew. That has to be established. We do not have half brothers and sisters if we share the same mama. It don't work like that. Only if it's the daddy. And
All right. Shalom, family. It's your brother Kanaiba coming at you once again with this video titled, "The Man's Seed Determines Your Ethnicity and Family Line. The concept of mixed people and half siblings are false concepts." Okay. Now, of course, this particular video is inspired by the Instagram post that you just saw. Okay, the young lady, she was I actually happened to stumble across that on Instagram, and she she was talking about the episode on Dr. Phil, right? And apparently it was an issue of what they call half siblings, which again, that's not biblical. But especially if you have the same father. Okay, I mean, and that was her whole thing. She was saying if you have the same mother, that's your brother, that's your sister. But if you only have the same father, then that's not your whole brother and sister. That's your brother and sister on your father's side. Hence, she was saying that you're half brothers and sisters. Well, I'm here to tell you that that concept is false. Okay, that's actually backwards. Okay, if you have the same father, okay, you are of the same family. You're of the same ethnicity. Okay, you're of the same family line. Okay, because the father is the source of the family. Okay, the seed comes from him. The seed is what determines a person's ethnicity. Okay, it really is a very simple concept. All right, just think about it. If you want to plant an apple tree, okay, are you going to put more focus on the where the ground is, or what type of ground you're planting the seeds in, or are you going to put more emphasis on the type of seeds that you plant? Okay, case in point, you could say, okay, I want to plant an apple tree, right? And then you look in your backyard and you say, oh wow, this ground is just perfect to plant an apple tree. But then you turn around and you go and buy lemon seeds. Okay, just because you liked the way that ground was, okay, and you plant lemon seeds in it, you're not going to get the desired apple tree because you got the wrong type of seeds. Okay, it's a very simple concept. Okay, the seeds is what determines, is what's going to determine the type of tree that comes up. Okay, and likewise, when dealing with people, the seed is what determines what type of person comes out, the ethnicity and the person's family line. Okay. Now, one may say, well, that's dealing with trees. That's not people. Well, if you were familiar with the Bible, okay, people are likened unto trees all throughout the Bible. Okay, even in Christianity, they should be able to understand that concept, because one of their favorite chapters in the Bible, which they have no understanding on, is Romans chapter 11, dealing with the olive trees. Okay. That's dealing with people. Okay, so the analogy that I gave is not far-fetched. Okay, it's actually right on point. Okay, even when you take this to the animal kingdom, when you deal with lions, okay, if you have one lion that's king over a particular pride of lions, okay, which consists of lionesses, right? and you have an opposing male lion that comes up and tries to take over that particular pride, right? Now, if the opposing male comes and, defeats the other male who's already over that pride, if he defeats that male, okay, what's going to happen after that? Okay, the offspring that the original male had with those lionesses, okay, the opposing male, now that he's king over that pride, what is he going to do? He's going to kill off the offspring of the previous male that was over that pride, okay? Now, the new king, he's not going to look at those particular cubs and say, well, if I have children with these lionesses, our children will be, they'll be siblings because they come from the same mothers. No, he's not looking at it like that, because that's not biological, okay? That's a completely different seed. It's not his seed. Therefore, he kills it off and then has his own offspring with the women or the lionesses of that particular pride. Okay? Now, we can bring it back to human beings, okay? In ancient times, when you had two opposing nations go to war with one another, okay? The nation or the people that actually win the war, what do they usually do to the people that they conquered? Okay, they usually kill off the men and save the women alive. Now, why is that? Because it was understood in ancient times that, it's the man that is the progenitor of people. Okay, the woman does not determine your ethnicity. So if the men were to have offspring with the women that's conquered, okay, the offspring is still going to be the offspring of the men that conquered those people. Okay, the woman has nothing to do with the ethnicity. Okay, this has always been a known fact, but just fast forward to today in this mother goddess worshiping society. Okay, they'll have you to believe that who you are, ethnically and biologically is about your mother, and that's just not true. Okay, now I'm not gonna really come down on the sister, because she really didn't seem like she was coming out of pocket. Okay, she just really seems misinformed. Okay, which most people are. Okay, but it's still something that I felt like I need to address, especially for people who may be new to the truth. I know a lot of brothers and sisters already know this, but I may have people that are new to the truth and new to my channel, and I felt like I'm going to take this opportunity to, speak on this particular topic. Okay. So now let's actually get into the scriptures and actually prove the point that I'm making. Okay. All right. So we're going to open up in the book of Numbers, chapter 1 and verse 18. And I should really be able to end the video with this particular verse, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to get into more precepts, but here we go. And it reads, "And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month. And they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upwards by their polls." Now, when we look towards the middle of this verse, it says this. It says, "And they declared their pedigrees after their families." And we're going to get into what that word pedigree means. It says, "by the house of their fathers." Why didn't it say by the house of their fathers and mothers? Okay, why didn't it just say by the house of their mothers? Right? Because in the video that I stumbled across from Instagram, the young lady, she was making it seem like your ethnicity is more determined by your mother, not your father, right? But here, biblically, we're saying the complete opposite, right? Because like I said, what she was saying is not biblically founded, and it's really not even biologically founded either. Okay? But anyway, what we're going to do now we're going to get into this word pedigree and see what it actually means. Let's get the etymology of the word pedigree. Okay? So now we're about to get into the etymology of the word pedigree, right? Now, I found it interesting what actually came up when I typed pedigree in the search bar. Okay? Look at everything that came up. Now, of course, pedigree came up, right? But there's two other things that actually caught my eye. And look at what came up. It says branch and it says genealogy. So what is that letting you know about the word pedigree? Okay. And even when you look at that word branch in the Bible, that's biblical too, because the word branch even deals with your ethnicity at times in the Bible. Okay. That's why this struck me as interesting. Okay. And we all know about the word genealogy. Okay. Now in the Bible, you may see it where it says these are the generations of such and such. And it's always dealing with men. Okay. But again, the word generations and genealogy, it has the same root, which is gene. Okay. Now, when you deal with that word gene, of course, that's going into sperm. Okay. But, I might get into that a little later, but right now we're going to stick with the word pedigree. Okay. And you can actually see it from here, but I'm going to zoom in some. Okay. All right. So zooming in a bit, and here you have it. Okay. It's the etymology for the word pedigree, and it reads early 15th century. Pedigree. And it says genealogical table or chart. Let's pause right there. It says genealogical table or chart. Okay, so it's letting you know that your pedigree goes into your genealogy. Okay, your ethnicity. That's what your pedigree is dealing with. And we already read Numbers 1 and 18 that a person's pedigree is determined by the house of their fathers. Now, that word house is dealing with family. So the families of your fathers, okay, that's what determines your ethnicity. It's your father, not your mother. Okay, so now moving forward, this is a chart that I actually put together, and it's dealing with, of course, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, right? Now, below his name, you have the name of 4 women, right? Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah, right? Now, these are the wives of Jacob, or Israel, okay? So, what we're about to do, we're really about to, cut the concept that the young lady was talking about on Instagram. Okay, we're going to cut that concept right now, because what she said was, if you have the same mother, then that's your brother or sister. But if you have the same father, then that's your brother or sister on your father's side. She was saying that that's your half brother or half sister. And that's incorrect. All the way around, incorrect. Okay. And most importantly, we know that's not biblical. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get into the story of Jacob, Rachel, and Leah, okay, and the birth of our nation, of our people, the Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel, okay. We're actually about to get into that story and get the history on what happened, okay. And of course, we're going to deal with the concept at hand, dealing with half brothers, half sisters, mixed people, all of that, okay. I'm gonna try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Okay. All right. So starting in the book of Genesis, this is Genesis chapter 29 and verse 30. And it reads, "And he went in also unto Rachel And he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. So just to give you a brief summary of what happened, of course, Jacob he made a bargain with Laban to work for him 7 years to marry his daughter Rachel. Okay, so he worked those 7 years, of course, and pretty much in a nutshell, Laban tricked Jacob into marrying Leah rather than Rachel. Okay, in the bed chamber it was dark, and he laid down with somebody, but he thought it was Rachel. But the morning came, and behold, it was Leah. Okay, which is Rachel's sister, right? So Jacob was upset about that because he bargained for Rachel rather than Leah. So, he made a deal to work 7 more years to be able to marry Rachel. Okay, so that's what that's going into, right? So verse 31, and it reads, and when Yahweh saw that Leah was hated, or in other words, Jacob loved her less, right? It says he opened up her womb, talking about Leah. It says, but Rachel was barren. Okay. So at this particular point, Rachel was not able to have children. That's what it means by she was barren. Okay. But Yahweh, he actually opened up Leah's womb. Okay. Because, he saw what she was going through, because, she really loved Jacob, but she wasn't the one that Jacob really bargained for. So, he loved her. He loved Leah, but he loved her less. Okay. Rachel was really the one he bargained for. That's the one he really truly loved, right? So Yahweh saw this, and, because of what Leah was going through, he opened up her womb, right? And as we're about to see, she's about to begin bearing children to Jacob. Okay, so let's get into that. So moving forward, this is verse 32, and it reads, and Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, surely Yahweh hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. Okay, so now we're seeing the birth of Jacob's very first son. Okay, and his name was Reuben, of course. Okay, so now moving forward, this is verse 33, and it reads, and she conceived again, talking about Leah, and bare a son, and said, because Yahweh hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. Okay, so thus far, Leah has had 2 children, right? She's had Reuben and she's had Simeon, right? Okay, so now let's move forward. So this, of course, is verse 34, and it reads, and she conceived again. This is still Leah. It says, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. Right? So now this is the 3rd son that Leah has had for Jacob. Okay, that's 3 sons, right? Let's move forward. Verse 35, and it reads, and she conceived again and bare a son. And she said, now will I praise Yahweh. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. Now, let's pause right here real quick. Now, of course, this last child that we just read about, his name is called Judah, which, of course, and I think I mentioned this in my last video. Again, Judah means praise Yahweh, or Yahweh's praise, right? So here again, this is just shedding light on what I was saying in my last video. Okay. Actually, each one of these sons that we just read about, within the verse, you're seeing the meaning of their names. Okay. I don't want to get too far off topic, but that's what, if you actually go back and read it, you'll see the meaning of each name, right? I may do a separate video dealing with the names of each tribe and what it means, maybe sometime in the future, right? But, I just wanted to shed light on Judah because I spoke about that in my last video, okay? So now, let's go back to our chart, okay? And as we see, based on what we just read, now, when you look up under Leah, I've added the 4 sons we just read about, okay? These are the children that Leah actually bare for Jacob thus far, okay? Based upon everything that we just read, okay? So this is where we're at thus far, okay? So now let's get back to the story and get more information on the birth of the rest of the tribes of Israel. Okay. All right. So getting back to the story, let's pick back up in Genesis chapter 30 and verse 4. And it reads, and she gave him Bilhah. Now this is talking about Rachel. Okay. Rachel gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife. And Jacob went in unto her. So when Jacob went in unto her, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what that means. But here again, Rachel saw that she was still barren, that she at the moment she could not give Jacob children. So what did she do? Her handmaid, she gave Jacob her handmaid to bear children in her stead, okay? To bear children for Jacob, okay? And now we're about to see the 2 sons that Bilhah is going to bear for Jacob. Okay, so let's get to that. Verse 5, and it reads, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. Verse 6, and Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. So again, this goes back to my original point. The definition of the names of each tribe is within the verse, okay? The name Dan in Hebrew literally means judge, okay? But just to get back on track, now we see Rachel's handmaid is bearing children for Jacob, and the first child was Dan, okay? So moving forward with the story, this is verse 7, and it reads, and Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bare Jacob a second son. Verse 8, and Rachel said, with great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, talking about Leah, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. So now Rachel's handmaid has had a second son for Jacob. And of course, the name of the second son is Naphtali. Okay. But notice the emphasis that Rachel placed on the wrestlings. Okay. This is almost like a competition between her and her sister Leah, dealing with who can have more kids or have more children for Jacob. Okay. So we're seeing the importance of women having children in the ancient time, how significant it was, right? For women to have children. It was like hitting the lottery back then, especially if they had a boy. Okay. Especially if the first child to open up that woman's womb, which was called the matrix, right? According to our law. If the first child that opens up the matrix or the woman's womb, if it's a boy, that particular child belongs to Yahweh. Okay. That's why you have to go to the temple and pay a ransom for that child, because that child belongs to Yahweh if the first child that comes out of a woman's womb is a boy. Okay. but not to get too far off track, but just showing the importance or how, valuable women saw having children, how it was back then, not like today, where they try to, society teaches them to put off childbearing and, put off having a husband and family, as long as they can, to the point where they're too old to do so. They tell them to put, a useless college degree and career above having a husband and children, which is what they were really created for. Okay. I believe the red pill community, calls it, a woman after they hit the wall. But that's what society teaches them, to wait till too late to try to start having a family. But, these are things that women are supposed to do early in their prime. Okay. But, just to get back to the point, you see the importance of, women having children in the ancient times. Okay. So let's get back to our chart now that we have that information from the story, right? So now we see under Bilhah the two children that she had for Jacob. Okay. And we just read it was Dan and Naphtali. Okay, so this is where we're at on the chart thus far. Okay, and just bear with me because, again, this is me building my premise. Okay, because remember what we saw in the video from Instagram. She was saying that, if you have the same mother, then you're not half siblings. But if you have the same father and not the same mother, then you are, half siblings, half brother, half sister. Well, I'm building a premise against that right now. Okay. So now let's move forward. All right. So getting back to the story, this is Genesis chapter 30 and verse 9. And it reads, when Leah saw that she had left bearing, meaning she wasn't having any more children at this particular time, it says she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob to wife. So she pretty much did the same thing that Rachel did, right? Okay, verse 10. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. Okay, verse 11. And Leah said, a troop cometh. And she called his name Gad. Okay, so this is the first son that Zilpah is having for Jacob, and the child's name is Gad. Okay, so now let's move forward. So this, of course, is verse 12, and it reads, and Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. Verse 13, and Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. So now we're seeing the birth of the second son that Zilpah, which is Leah's maid, bare for Jacob. Okay, and the child's name is Asher. Okay, so these are the two sons that Zilpah had for Jacob. Okay, so now let's go back to our chart. All right. Okay, so going back to the chart. Now we see we have an update, right? If you look to the far right, you see Zilpah. Okay, and we just read that she had two sons for Jacob, correct? And those two sons were who? Gad and Asher. Okay. So right now we're seeing all the sons that, these three women had for Jacob. Now notice right now, Rachel is still barren. She hasn't had any children for Jacob as of right now. Okay. So now let's get back to the story and pick up where we left off at. Okay. All right. So picking back up with the story. This is Genesis chapter 30 and verse 17. And it reads, and God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob the fifth son. Okay, so this is the fifth child that Leah is having for Jacob. Okay, so Yahweh opened her womb back up. Okay, now let's get to it. Verse 18. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire. Okay, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. Okay, which again in Hebrew means he is hired. That's Issachar, right? So now we're seeing Leah had a fifth son for Jacob, right? And we see this child is Issachar. So now let's move forward with the story. Okay. All right. So moving forward, this is verse 19, and it reads, And Leah conceived again and bare Jacob the sixth son. Okay, this is the sixth child that she's had for Jacob. Okay, now let's read forward. And this is verse 20, and it reads, And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. Right? So this is the 6th son that Leah has born for Jacob. Okay? So now let's move forward with the story, because Leah, she's not done quite yet. Okay, so let's move forward. All right, so now this is verse 21, and it reads, And afterwards she bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah. Okay, so now that we have this information, let's go back to our chart, shall we? All right, so this is our chart. Okay, and if you look to the far left under Leah, we see Leah been getting busy. Oh boy, so we see that she's now had 3 more children for Jacob. Okay, one of which is a girl, which is Dinah. Okay, and of course she also had Issachar and Zebulun, right? But now that we have this information, I'm gonna pause right here and let's pose a question. Now, when you look at all 12 tribes in their totality, right? Why is Dinah never mentioned amongst the 12 tribes? Oh, let's ponder on that. Somebody cue the Jeopardy music. Why is she not named amongst the tribes of Israel? Why? I'll tell you why. Because your ethnicity is not determined by women. Okay? Your ethnicity is determined by men, your father. Okay? Your fathers. That is what determines who you are. Okay? Even though Dinah was born from Jacob, which makes her an Israelite, right? Whatever man that she now has offspring with, her offspring are going to be, the ethnicity of the man that she lays down with. That's why she's not named amongst the tribes of Israel. Okay, makes sense? All right, now let's get back to the story. Okay. All right, so picking back up where we left off at, this is Genesis chapter 30 and verse 22, and it reads, And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened up her womb. Because remember, based off what we just read and based on our chart, Rachel is the only woman of the group that hasn't had any children yet, personally. She's still been barren. Okay, so the Most High has finally opened up her womb, and she's about to conceive, right? So let's read about that. Verse 23, and it reads, And she conceived, and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. So now we see how it was viewed in ancient time when women weren't able to have children. Okay, that was viewed as a reproach. Okay, but fast forward to today, and a lot of women look at having children as being as oppressive. I have not heard such foolishness in my life. Okay, that is crazy. But anyway, let's move forward. Verse 24, and it reads, and she called his name Joseph, and said, Yahweh shall add to me another son. Right? So now, Rachel has finally been able to bear a child. And this child is Joseph. Okay, this is the first son that she bare for Jacob. Okay, and she's about to bear one more. Okay, so now let's jump to chapter 35 and let's read about that. Okay. All right. So moving forward, this is Genesis chapter 35, starting at verse 16. And it reads, and they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. Okay, so now Rachel is in labor again, but this time it's a hard labor. Okay, let's move forward. Verse 17, and it reads, and it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said unto her, fear not, thou shalt have this son also. Okay, so Rachel is about to have another son. Okay, the second child that she bare for Jacob. Okay, so let's move forward. Verse 18, and it reads, and it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, right? But his father called his name Benjamin. Okay, so, before she died, she wanted the child's name to be Benoni, right? But Jacob, he said, no, the child's name is going to be called Benjamin. Okay, so, we've seen all throughout this story that, he's allowed the women to actually name the children. And we know it was all in the spirit because each name, has a specific meaning to it, right? But it's also showing the authority that Jacob had, But this particular time, Rachel wanted the child's name to be one thing, but now Jacob was able to pull rank, okay, because he's the head, and he decided he wanted the child's name to be Benjamin, showing the authority that the man has in the relationship, right? Unlike today, which, this society is out of order, backwards, wicked, evil, and all those things. Okay. But notice, Rachel, she didn't, argue with Jacob. She didn't say, this my child. I carried it 9 months. You can't tell me that. No. She didn't do that. Okay. The child's name became Benjamin. Okay. Just like Jacob said. Okay. So now, having all this information, let's go back to our chart one last time here. Okay. All right. So now we're back at our chart. Okay. And now we see the chart is complete. If you look under Rachel, we see the 2 children that she bare for Jacob. Okay. Which is Joseph and Benjamin. Okay. So if you take count of all the children that Jacob had, he had a sum total of 13 children, 12 of which are boys. Okay, which again goes back to my original point. Why is Dinah not mentioned amongst the tribes of Israel? Why is it that when you look at the chart, you don't see the tribe of Dinah? You don't read about a tribe of Dinah because tribes don't are not created from women, or they're not the progenitor of tribes. Okay, they're just not. Okay, your ethnicity and your family line comes from men. That men determine that, because men are, the seed comes from the man. The seed is the very being of that child. Okay. Now, what when you look at this chart, what's the common denominator here? Okay, it's not the women, it's Jacob. Jacob is the common denominator. He is the source of this family. And notice I said family singular, not plural. Okay, because to give you a scenario, a lot of times, let's get an occupation. Over the road truck drivers, okay, that are men, right? A lot of times, women have been reluctant to get with over the road truck drivers because they fear that what they say, they may have another family out there in another city or on the road somewhere, right? But that's a false notion, because technically that wouldn't be another family. Okay, when people make statements like that, what they're doing, they're implying that the woman is the source of the family, and that's not so. That's not true. Okay, the man is the source of the family. Okay, as we see in this chart right here, the common denominator is Jacob. Okay, and all 12 of those sons make up one nation of people. Okay, because they all come from the same source, which is Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. Okay, and notice, like I just said, all 12 sons make up one nation of people. Okay, now notice they come from 4 different women. Okay, they come from 4 different women, yet these 12 sons that come from 4 different women make up one nation of people. Nowhere in the Bible are they called half siblings. Okay, they're not looked at as half siblings. They are the same family. Okay, they are whole brother and sister, if you want to say it that way. Okay, because they come from the same source, which is Jacob or Israel. Okay, so what the young lady was saying on Instagram is a completely false notion. Okay, it's a false concept. All right, so now what I want to do, I want to bring up 2 more precepts here and bring this to a close. Okay, and I'm going to make a point with these 2 precepts. Okay, this is going into our law. Okay, so this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 25, starting at verse 5, and it reads, "If a brethren dwell together and one of them die," okay, these are 2 men, okay, "and have no child," meaning the deceased brother, he dies without having any children, okay, "the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger." Okay, now what does that mean, that the wife of the deceased shall not marry without unto a stranger? Meaning she can't marry into another family, because why? Her offspring is going to be the ethnicity of whatever man that she gets with. Okay, so according to our law, we can't do that in this particular situation. So now let's move forward. It says, "Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her." Okay, so if a particular deceased man dies without having any children, and he has a brother, okay, and that deceased man was married, okay, his brother is supposed to take the wife of the deceased brother to be his wife, and perform what's known as the duty of an husband's brother. Okay, so now let's get more information on that in the next verse. Okay, so moving forward, this is verse 6. And it reads, "And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. So, when the brother of the deceased man actually has his first child with the wife of that deceased man, okay, that first child is actually going to carry on the name of the deceased brother, okay, according to our law, okay, so that the dead brother's name won't be put out of Israel, okay, his name will live on. But that's not the point I'm making, okay. Here's my point, okay. When you go into our law, okay, why is it that you cannot find the opposite of this law? Why is it that you cannot find where it says if a woman dies barren, having no children, okay, and she has a sister, the sister of the deceased woman shall lay with the husband of the deceased woman, and the first child that she bear shall carry on the name of the deceased woman. Why don't we see anything like that in our law? Why don't we see the opposite of what we just read? You want to know why? Because your ethnicity and your family line is not determined by women. It's determined by men. Okay? Your father. Okay? That's why you don't see the opposite said in our law. Okay? But anyway, I believe this is actually a good place to actually end this video. Again, the title of this video is "The Man's Seed Determines Your Ethnicity and Family Line." The concept of mixed people and half siblings are false concepts. Okay? And of course, we've proven that through the precepts that we've gone through the story of our beginning as the children of Israel. Okay, this whole concept of half siblings and even mixed people. Okay, there's no such thing as a mixed person. Okay, whatever your father is, that's what you are. Has nothing to do with your mother. Okay, but of course, this particular video was inspired from, that video I saw on Instagram. Okay. And, the spirit moved me, and I felt that this was an opportunity to teach this lesson. Okay. Especially for, brothers and sisters that may be more new to the truth. Okay. So with that, of course, as always, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. I want to thank all you brothers and sisters for tuning in. And until next time, Shalom, family.